Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Last session, we walked through the weekly task list, the day-to-day habits that keep your calendar healthy. And today we're going to zoom out and go over a monthly task list. Allison, did you want to give us a brief um, overview of VRNation and who you are?
Yeah. So my name is Allison and I own Bailey Vacation Rentals in Southern Maine. So I am a property manager. Um, I am a board member with VRNation as well, which is a great organization that is really built by managers for managers and partnership with all of our vendors to provide a higher level of education and a new excitement into the vacation rental space. And I'm very happy to be part of the team and very happy to be here today.
Awesome. And I'm Kendra, solutions consultant at Price Labs. Day to day, my job is helping revenue managers get more out of our tool. So a lot of what you'll hear today comes straight from conversations that I've had with operators every week, and talking more about the tool and the things that we know are working.
Mm.
And quick word on Vera Nation, obviously, before we get moving. They're the community that's putting the session together, and their whole mission is raising the bar on professionalism and education across the industry, which is exactly why this pairing makes sense.
Absolutely.
So here's where we're headed. We'll start with a mindset shift between weekly and monthly revenue management, walk through the four pillars, monthly strategy loop, go one level deeper into each pillar, cover forecasting and performance metrics, talk through the mistakes even good operators make, and close with a checklist that you can start using today. Allison will be with me the whole way through, jumping in with her own perspective, and we'll take your questions throughout the presentation if they make sense. But you can ask the questions and we can hold them till the end as well.
Mhm.
So let's start with our mindset shift. Every revenue manager lives in one of two modes. We consider that our firefighter, who's looking at the next 30 days, responding to occupancy gaps, adjusting prices date by date. And our architect is looking 60, 90, even 120 days out, building demand strategy and setting seasonal rules before the demand even shows up. And neither mode is wrong. You need both. But operators who grow their portfolios are the ones who protect time for the architect side of the job.
Mm.
Allison, which mode do you feel like you spend more of in your week?
Mm. I feel like naturally my first thing I feel like other managers can relate to is like, what do you do when you're just a little bit in between, right? I consider myself
Or
leaning a little bit more towards the architect. I find that with a very short seasonality, I'm continuously looking forward, not just what's right in front of me, because when you're such a short season, every little bit counts and everything matters. So I really would consider myself more of the architect, so that way you can kind of keep an eye of what's going on at all points in time versus it's kind of that reactive versus proactive thinking.
yeah, have you felt that that balance has shifted at all since as your portfolio grows and gets larger?
Absolutely, because I think each property has its own needs as well. And so with having the property having their own needs and growing the portfolio, it means that the needs get larger of the portfolio. So the best way to ensure consistency, I would say, is really that planning ahead so that way you know your homes, you know where your owner blocks are, you know where your guest reservations are, and then where the seasonality is as well. Because again, for me, when you're in a summer destination, obviously owners are there to enjoy their home as well, which can have a very large impact when you're in a short seasonality.
Absolutely. It's a good conversation to have.
Yeah.
And as we look at section two, we're going to talk about the monthly strategy loop and what that architect side actually looks like month to month. And that's our strategy
Mhm.
loop. Our four pillars, and they run in a loop. It's not a straight line. Our macro market audit, our base strategy calibration, long range pacing, and profitability review. We're going to unpack each of these one at a time in a few minutes. So just a quick task here to show the whole shape before we zoom in.
Mm.
So a quick contrast before we go deeper. A reactive review only looks backward at last month, never adjusting pricing, and reacts too late. A strategic review looks forward too, and that difference shows up directly in stronger ADR growth, better occupancy quality, and fewer pricing mistakes over time. Allison, can you think of a moment or a time in switching from a reactive view to a strategic one has really moved that number for you, even in a small way?
Yeah, I would say actually it's great that you asked that. This past year, we've really focused in on the rebooking with our repeat guests. We've always kind of been a first come, first serve.
Mm,
And we really changed out our process on how we ended up rebooking, and we're seeing growth overall between the revenue and, our ADRs as well. And what I think a lot of owners really want to see, obviously we can shout to the rooftops how important it is for the bottom line and how the rent income really matters, but at the end of the day, people want to see they want to see occupancy.
that's a great takeaway. Absolutely. So our deep dive here, we're going to go into each of these pillars one at a time. Our macro market audit is our first pillar. And the four things that we want to do to check every month is know that new supply is entering your market every day. And demand signals are telling you, compared to this time last year, has your competitor landscape shifted with new properties or renovations? How does your occupancy compare to the overall market? A 10% jump in supply alone can suppress your ADR. So this isn't just something you want to check once a year.
Mm.
Our base strategy calibration is our second pillar. Base rates, minimum stay settings, seasonal pricing blocks, and length of stay discounts. All four deserve the same monthly gut check. Is this still working, or did I set it and move on? And have I forgotten about it?
Mhm.
Comp sets drift alone. That reason is enough to revisit your base rates on a regular basis.
Mm.
Allison, do you often personally revisit your seasonal pricing blocks? And have you caught one that is maybe quietly costing you
Of
money
course.
in either occupancy or ADR?
Of course. I think it's just you can try your hardest and do everything, but there's always something to be missed. And I think that speaks volume in anything that you do. But
Hmm.
having that core structure that you rely on, I also find helps your sales team push sales along as well. Like when you really have that base set going there, it gives your team also permission to make transactions or make sales within reason because you know that your pricing tool is where you want it to be, that you reviewed those minimums. So you're not leaving anything on the table. And so I think that my biggest thing is it encourages the reservation team.
Absolutely, that's a good takeaway too. And our third pillar, long range pacing. And this
Mm.
is really about knowing what each booking window is telling you. 30 days out is high urgency. If you're behind last year, that's action this week, not next month. 60 days is your prime action window, single decision with the biggest revenue impact.
Mm.
90 days is, where seasonal pricing and minimum stay rules compound across the widest stretch in your calendar.
Mm.
120 days is just a directional signal, useful for spotting event windows early, not for making final calls.
Mm.
And our fourth pillar, profitability review. We want to look at our channel mix, our occupancy quality, portfolio outliers, and cost per booking. I liked what Allison, you said earlier in regards to really looking at those repeat guests. I think this fits perfectly into this slide specifically and looking at the occupancy quality. This is the
Mm,
pillar that keeps you honest because high
mm,
occupancy at a low rate can destroy your profitability
right,
compared to a lower occupancy at a premium rate. It's not
right.
just about filling your calendar, right? It's about
Mm,
what each night actually nets you.
right, right. And how, and honestly, what type of impact that has on your owners? Because if those are guests that you want to keep, and you're what we're talking about here too is comparison in the market, compared to someone that you know, right? Like Bob that's been staying with you for 10 years,
Absolutely.
pricing tools don't know Bob. And so where do you find
Mhm.
that common ground to be able to make sure that you take care of Bob, but also take care of your new potential people that are coming in? And again, leaving it as a hot option for owners, capturing when you can.
Absolutely, absolutely. And those, as you said earlier too, about those owners that like to use their property, that has to be something you take into consideration too.
Mm-hmm.
And one level deeper on two of these, starting with comp set management. Every review cycle, audit your comp set for properties that have shifted tier or quality. People are doing renovations every day. Three emerging comps that are performing well. Check your ADR position against that set. Watch their availability patterns for demand signals and recalibrate for any quality changes like new amenities and rate shifts. Allison, do you
Mm-hmm.
swap out your comps in your set often? And have you ever found one that really no longer belong there?
Um, Yeah, I think because it's your market is always changing and there is so much competition that's coming in and is so much competition that's going out. So I think that, as much as your personal life changes year to year, you can expect the market to change in the same manner.
Absolutely. And I think as we've seen just in, in some markets where people are wanting and willing to travel, shifts in
Mm,
international travel, shifts in where snow is coming in the winter and where it's not, deeply impacting some people's profitability.
absolutely. Absolutely. And overall, of course, economic status as well.
Yep, 100%. And our second deep dive is lead time management. When lead times are expanding and guests are booking 60 to 90 days out, that's your cue to open premium inventory earlier and potentially look at what your rates are and consider maybe raising those rates as well. When lead
Mm,
times are compressing, last minute bookings pick up while a 60-day plus calendar is still wide open. And that might be
mm,
your cue to loosen those minimum stays and activate last minute discounts. So we don't want those nights to go empty.
mm.
Allison, what are you seeing in your own market? Do you have expanding or compressing lead times? And what's your favorite way to respond to that?
I feel like it has been a lot of compressing lead times as it's moved
Mm,
on. We see a lot more people going last minute. We're also a big driving destination. A lot of our customer base comes from multiple states that are close by. So because of that, with driving destination,
yeah.
we see it's less like planning or effort to plan.
The
Now
last
vacation.
minute getaway on the weekends.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, vacation is still a lot to plan, but it seems less enticing when you don't have to hop on you don't have to hop on a plane and make sure that you're getting your flights on the right
Hmm.
Tuesday.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm seeing them compress a lot more. We always, I feel like, function best in that last minute window, in that last minute pickup.
Hmm.
It's something that our team has always kind of really thrived on. And I think a big thing with your lead management too, is considering your gap nights. Like when did this
Absolutely.
person come in? And is it someone that might be accepting of a gap night?
Absolutely. And potentially reaching out to guests that are in residence and saying, hey, maybe you want to expand your
Mhm,
stay an extra night
mhm,
and being able to have the flexibility to offer that.
mhm.
Um, I like what you said too, about seeing and knowing what those lead times are in compression. That also means not activating those last minute discounts too soon.
Right,
As
right.
if that's your prime market, you don't want to discount when guests would, automatically already pay what your normal rate would be.
Yeah. And I think your expanding lead time can also be seriously impacted by your brand loyalty. You know,
Absolutely.
if that's really your approach to get your customer base, and how do you present it to people, and what type of offer do you have for them to entice them to book right now, to get them on the calendar, to secure the revenue right now and keep them as your guest because they're loyal to the brand.
Absolutely. And that's a big thing. I think people are really looking at um, you know, where I can book and who I can book with and who do I trust. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
something that has really increased
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of guests.
Mm-hmm.
So our last section here is we're going to talk about how do you actually measure all of this? Alice and I can talk all day about what we think and what we feel, but it's important to know that the data is really what we want to speak back to.
Mm-hmm.
And the six numbers that are worth really tracking every month, looking backwards, your net ADR after fees, after commission, after platform fees,
Mm-hmm.
occupancy present by property type and season, and your RevPAR, which is really the single most telling number for your whole portfolio. Revenue by channel, channel mix, that percent, your booking lead time as a leading indicator of demand, as you kind of pointed out, Allison, it's a big one for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the forward glance. Here's a forward-looking slide, 30, 60, 90, and 120 days out. 30 days tells you if you need to act right now. 60 days is your most actionable window. 90 days is where your seasonal pricing and minimum stays have their widest impact. And 120 days and out is that high level signal for flagging events early.
Mm-hmm.
Allison, when you look at charts like this, are you looking at these daily, weekly? And when you see a gap here, when does that actually start to worry you?
Mm, I would say I check these weekly. It's my Friday thing before heading into the weekend because
I like
everyone loves
that.
to book loves to book on the weekend. So
Yep.
that's my Friday thing. Point of when I get concerned, um, I think plainly you really have to train your brain to
Mm,
be proactive versus reactive, and you have to know your market and know that, okay, if you're functioning in more of a last minute, then you should be able to have some fill in. And at the same time, I also say when you're in season and these are the things that you pick up on, or you notice it's pacing behind, I'm already thinking into next year. Like the second that it's
absolutely.
hitting and that is passing, okay, then this is where we're going to hit that sweet spot coming into next year. Um,
Yeah.
and as far as concern for with the market, I mean, you're always keeping an eye, but it's also, again, the mindset where controlling what you can control and knowing what's out of your control. Obviously, all these impacts with the market, I think we have a lot to speak for rentals by owners. Because if you're a homeowner and you're sitting there on a Tuesday night and you got it open that weekend, you'll think, oh, you know what? I didn't want to go below X, but after this glass of wine, looking at my calendar, I think that I should go below X.
I might
And
have to.
so
Yeah, absolutely.
I might have to get this booked. And then if you have owners, obviously going through that chain of command. So I think
Hmm.
that market impact is large from rental by owner as well, which can
Hmm.
sometimes function in a different capacity. So I think it's important to recognize that as well and
Yeah,
maybe drill down on those ones. Like what are you seeing from those particular when you look at that calendar?
absolutely. Now, here's the fun part. Let's talk about that glass of wine. And talk a little bit more about potential mistakes that we might be making. Because,
Mm,
sometimes that glass of wine might help us make a decision. And sometimes we might do something that is something we need to rewind. Um, and I think here's something we're sitting with. The most expensive revenue mistakes usually aren't pricing mistakes at all. They're decision-making mistakes, and even experienced operators can make them. And we've got three to walk through. Set it and forget it, amnesia, the fat finger base rate panic, and the rear view mirror trap. So our first one, the set it and forget it amnesia. Say back in October, you blocked off Thanksgiving weekend with a 5 night minimum. Smart move at the time, it's October. But then a local event got canceled and the market softened and your calendar never got updated. Your occupancy dropped off from an expected 94% down to 52. 8 nights sat empty and none of it was caused by pricing. It was caused by forgetting to revisit an old decision. The fix is simple. You just need to review your date, specific restrictions every month and ask, is this still justified by the current demand? Allison, have you ever found an old restriction that's sort of sitting on your calendar that you no longer needed or made sense?
Has everyone?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Because, because sometimes it is the life, you said it, forget it, you think that you did it, but it is one of those things that requires consistent management from
Mhm.
picking it apart to also high level. Like you really, when you're looking at it, you want to look at it from all different sides. So like you're saying, getting down into that date specific, but also checking up at your occupancy at this level. Because if you're checking one or the other, you're going to find it because they cross.
Absolutely. There's a lot of signals there that we can look to make sure that
Right.
we're crossing
What's
our
going
T's and
on?
dotting our proverbial
Right.
I's. Absolutely.
Right. Right. And as much as pricing has our impact in our holds as well, it also should spark light bulbs for you to think about maybe some other things, maybe not just your pricing holds that are there, but how your pricing holds could impact with how your listing looks and X and Y and Z and how you present that information.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So our pitfall number two, the fat finger base rate panic. So you're worried about your slow pacing in March. So you open up Price Labs to adjust your date specific override for 2 weeks. Except you accidentally hit the portfolio base rate and edit everything instead. So now every property you manage just dropped 15% in base price, including your peak April inventory. On a 20 property portfolio averaging $200 a night, that's about a 600 loss in ADR per booked night before your peak season has even landed. So, the fix we recommend is using date specific overrides for anything that's temporary and never touch your base rates reactively midweek.
That's a good one.
And our third pitfall is the rear view mirror trap. So your past performance is data. Your future performance is strategy. So
Mm.
picture it like you're driving. 20% of your attention belongs in your rear view mirror. Looking at what June actually did. 61% occupancy, 326 ADR, both up nicely from last June. But 80% of your attention belongs in your windshield. What's already on the books for July, 46% occupancy so far, EDR is already pacing at 376. The temptation to spend all of your energy explaining last month, but that opportunity is right in front of you.
Mm.
Allison, have you ever caught yourself looking backwards more than forwards?
Always, it's because when really you're looking backwards, obviously you're comparing. It's comparison, and it's very hard for you to give yourself equal opportunity if you're just kind of staring in the rear view. And I think it's so important because just as quick as you thought it, you could be looking into the future and how you can change, shift, or hold if you need to do any of the above. Because I mean, your rear view can tell you too where it's good to stay.
Absolutely. It's a good guardrail, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So how do you pull yourself back to the windshield? Do you find that there's a trick or a helpful key that helps you get there?
Yeah, I think it is proactive versus reactive thinking. Being in the rearview mirror is a lot of reactive thinking, like, I gotta change this now, we gotta drop this because I could miss this, and then we're behind on here. It's like, okay, I have to think practically here. We are here now. This is what we'd be looking at. This is the strategy to achieve more income, more occupancy. And in turn, they obviously they coincide. It's important to
I
have
do.
both of them. But just as anything in life, again, you got to be looking forward to know where you're going.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So let's pull this all together into something that you, as a property manager and owner operator, can actually use.
Mm,
So, of our 5 signals, we have 5 actions.
mm,
Pacing outperforming last year by 15% or more, increase your peak weekend minimum stays. Lead time expanding past 60 days, consider opening premium inventory earlier, raising rates in that window.
mm,
For comp set unavailability on those key dates, that's your competitors telling you that they're full and you might want to raise your own rates on those dates.
mm,
Occupancy lagging 10% or more behind last year. You want to review your base pricing and reduce minimum stays. If your OTA channel mix is creeping upward, it might be time to reassess your direct booking incentives and your
mm,
distribution approach.
mm.
Allison, is there a signal here that you personally trust the most before take that action and move a rate?
Um, I would say probably the OTA channel mix, I think
Mm,
is the biggest one. And that's just because it really gives you a good gauge. I like to say like where the raw income is, right? Because when you're looking at other OTAs, there's other costs that are associated with these channels versus taking a
there
direct
are.
booking. So I really call that like your
Yeah.
raw cost. And
Hmm.
so when you're looking at your raw cost, it gives you a very, at least for me, a very good gauge of organic, like an organic search versus obviously having to do increases per channel or pay commissions and X and Y and
Yeah.
Z. Yeah,
I think you talked about this before too, right? You're talking about those repeat guests where you're finding that real loyalty and those people who are more likely to leave reviews, who are going to continue booking with you, and those direct bookings are typically going to be a place that you can really do that.
absolutely.
I like that a lot. I keep coming back to that because it's such a good idea. So before we wrap, just a quick word on Price Labs for anyone in the room who isn't using it yet. The tool is built around the exact workflow that we just walked through. Market data, dynamic pricing, portfolio analytics, all in one. Across the short-term, midterm, and hotel style inventory.
Amazing. Amazing. And I know Kendra, I had looks like we did have a question here on the side I wanted to maybe sneak in here. Or if you
Absolutely.
think, okay, awesome. So from the Q&A section, one of them is what size comp set do you aim for?
Mm, that is a good question. Allison, do you want to take a stab at this? And I mean, I can also respond from what Price Labs recommends.
Hmm. What size comp set am I looking for is really going to be this the similarities, finding those similarities to know that the comp set that you're looking at is exactly something that you want to be looking at and paying attention a little bit for the details of that and knowing your properties versus the market, I think is a big one
Yeah.
that I would say, and making sure that the comp sets you're looking at are in fact similar. I also think a huge thing that comes into play is decor and photos. So make sure that you're kind
Mhm.
of looking down and is what type of impact is this having against my listing? Is this apples to orange or is this apples to apples?
Absolutely. And, I think I tell a lot of the folks that I work with, to lean into their knowledge about the area and the market. You know your properties well. And when you, I think specifically to what you spoke to, Allison, about um, knowing how, comparing apples to apples. And you wouldn't compare your property that has a hot tub to properties that maybe just have a community pool, or, in those highly, coastal markets, that the properties that are on the beach are priced extraordinarily differently than the properties that are maybe 2 or 3 blocks away from the beach. And being able to carve out and know where those properties are can really
Mm.
change the size of your comp set. But for the most part, the more properties you have in your comp set, I would say the better you are at making sure that you're going to have accurate data. As the smaller number of properties you have, you're likely to get spikes in signals, or properties that go offline,
Mm.
or that have big blocks that are really going
Mm.
to, throw a number in your works.
Mhm. Nice. Awesome. Thanks, Kendra.
You bet. So um, we so the right tools really talks to specifically how to amplify that flywheel in our uh, kind of the loop that we were talking about. And this maps directly back to those 4 pillars. Market pulse covers macro market audit, surfacing demand signals, and event detection automatically. So these pricing engine signals are handled by our base strategy calibration, adjusting rates across, your full 90-day window. Comp sets get automatically monitored across 10 pulse comps or 10 plus comps without having to really open a single listing by hand. And the forecasting tool gives you pace, pickup analytics for long range pacing. You don't really have to make a spreadsheet, which is nice.
Mm.
And as far as quick numbers on Price Labs, founded in 2014, we're pricing over 600,000 listings every
Just a
day,
little bit. Just a little bit.
and a little bit,
A little bit.
in 150 plus countries, with a team
Wow.
spread across the US, Brazil, Portugal, India, France, Spain, the Netherlands, Philippines, Bulgaria. We have over 19 different countries where we have employees. It's a fantastic mix of people that really understand their, hyper local areas.
Awesome. Love that.
And that our 5 pieces really work together. Dynamic pricing, portfolio analytics, our market dashboards, our revenue estimator pro to help you grow. These create instant estimates for any rental network worldwide. And our listing optimizer to catch gaps in your listing content. I think, Allison, you spoke to this specifically, and that it's sometimes your photos. It's,
Mm.
sometimes that headline. Where
Mhm.
might um, my description be lacking a callback to some amenities that I might have, or, photos that I might not have of my amenities at all. And Listing
Mm.
Optimizer can call that out specifically and
Mm.
show you where your ranking is within your OTA, so you can figure out how best to address that with steps. Gives you specific steps, which is great.
Great. Great.
And that's the walkthrough. I would love to open it up um, and see if there are any other questions. Um, if we have more folks that would like to ask um, anything of either Allison and I, we would love to hear.
Yes, yes, please and thank you. Feel free to go right ahead and send them in. And Kendra, I did have a couple of them for you as well.
Yeah,
Um, for a smaller portfolio, what are 3 monthly revenue management metrics that I could prioritize if I don't have time to go through everything? What's my priority?
I think occupancy and looking at where you're pacing against the market.
Mm.
Um, and I think looking at the signals of, again, sort of looking and keeping in balance that windshield and rearview mirror, is
Mm.
looking at where I am compared to my same time last year.
Yeah.
And then really looking at your RevPAR. I think being able to know where you're sitting, um, in your own performance is really important.
Yeah, amazing. Which is very helpful because we're all very busy and it's hard to prioritize
100%.
because everything's a priority. So really, these are the things that would be most helpful if you're really trying to make that approach to hone in on those pricing skills that are offered inside of Price Labs too.
Yeah, like you said, I think you have that. It's your Friday task. You sit down, you got 5 minutes. Here's what I can do.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I had a couple more for you too. And
Yeah.
as always, anyone's welcome to submit those through. So, how do you know when a property's weak performance is a pricing problem first in the listing or distribution or market demand?
I think looking at your neighborhood and looking at your comp sets, right? I think
Yep.
when look specifically at the properties that you have outlined and, set specifically as the ones that need to be your call to, you see how am I pacing both in occupancy and price, but that
Hmm.
booking window is really important too. Because if those properties are booking 60 to 90 days out, being able to look at their pricing and say, why is this outside my normal booking window? And do I need to react to that? I think that's really important.
Nice, nice. It looks like we did get one in here as well. Do we have any advice for larger portfolios spread across multiple slash diverse markets? Which is great.
That is a great one. I think the word advice leaves a lot to be to said too. I think advice for larger portfolios for me would be looking at what you know about those markets and leaning into
Mm,
the data that for me for Price Labs, what you know the tools to be available to you. We
mm,
have market dashboards where you can look into what is my market doing. You can look at different OTAs. You can look at what is the pacing, what is the occupancy, where should I be pricing? You can look
mm,
at the very hyper local areas in your neighborhood and again, lean into that data. And if you don't live in the area, if you're not really familiar, maybe your portfolio is growing a significant amount and you've just gotten in a very unique set of villas in a coastal area in Florida. And you're like, I have no idea how to price this. Or maybe you've gotten a midterm market in Quebec and you really need to figure out how do I price this as I'm really only familiar with short-term rentals. And the
mm,
pricing engine and the tools within Price Labs, I think, are the best way to do that. And looking at the data that's available for you to be
mm.
able to look specifically at what are your market signals.
Yeah, no, I do love that. And I think that's the benefit of having the pricing tool, right? You
Mhm.
get the technology mixed in with the human element, is what I always say. So really
Yeah.
letting that technology piece work for you because it knows what's going on in your neighborhood, it knows what's going on for events, it knows what's going on in your other neighbor, it's comparing other markets nearby. So that best source, because I mean it's a lot of takes a lot of brain to make this tool happen and this world
Absolutely.
that we've kind of stepped in into the fully dynamic pricing piece and heavily leaning on your tool. And I think a big thing for me that I think about too is, using that as leverage with your owners. That's just the number one thing. Leverage with your owners,
100%.
which can
There
alleviate.
are, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 no. I just get excited about it. It
Yeah,
can relying on that pricing tool can alleviate a lot of that. What do I even do? I don't know about these beach houses in Florida. Like I don't know. Using that with the owner to trust the
yeah.
tool.
I think that's great. And knowing that you have the resources and tools and being able to download a report specifically for those properties. So as a large operator, sometimes you're looking at huge amounts of data.
Mm,
And
mm,
how do I pare that down into this is just Bob's property? I need to know that these 10 properties that I manage for Bob, I need to be able to run a report and speak specifically to Bob when I have that quick meeting with him and go, here's how you're doing.
mm,
And being able to look at that directly in, a report is really, really helpful.
Nice. Love that. We got a couple more here. When do you base decisions off comp set data versus neighborhood data?
I think for your comp set data is going to be an option for you to look at a larger number of properties. If you're also in a very unique market, or you're in a market where you have maybe a very large property, and you have maybe like an 8-bedroom property, and your neighborhood data and comparing your property to other 8-bedroom properties might be very low. And you want to look at a comp set in a market dashboard where you can open that up a little bit to look at it from the guest perspective. And I think
Mm,
when you look at it, some guests are, they're looking at a 6-bedroom property, but they might also consider an 8-bedroom property. And knowing that you can strategically price yourself or make sure that you're not underpricing or overpricing yourself, again, from that guest perspective, being able to compare the two can be really, really helpful.
I do really like that because sometimes you just get a unicorn, and that's the thing
100%.
about a unicorn. There's not other ones like it. And no two houses is the same. Doesn't matter if it's the same builder right next door, no two houses the same. We got
Yeah.
another good one here. How do you address issue if owner wants higher minimum price than market price?
Run the data for them. Show them what happens if you raise their minimum, or their base price, and give them an estimate based on occupancy for that month
Mm,
and what we know guests are paying, and
mm,
show them that if we miss out on 10% occupancy but we've raised our price, we have some guests that may still be willing to pay that price. How has our revenue shifted? And I think the data and the numbers and the money that's going to be earned speaks volumes to a lot of owners, because that short-sightedness of, I couldn't possibly rent my property out for $200 a night. It has to at least be 225 or 250. And you go, okay, sure. Here's what the market and the local area is doing and what guests are willing to pay. If we were to, raise our rates, we may only get bookings on the weekend. And that how could impact our overall monthly revenue from maybe $3,000 in a particular month to maybe, 1,700. I
yeah.
think it's a easy to conversation to have. And ultimately, if the owner only wants 225 because they don't care if it sits empty,
Mm,
you
yeah.
just kind of have to say, okie
Yep.
dokie.
Yep. Yep, I totally understand that. It's a hard conversation to have. I think what
It is.
rings what rings a lot for me is really educating. So taking an
Mhm.
opportunity to educate your homeowners, because here's the thing. Every owner has the best house. They
It's very
watch a
special, unique,
commercial. They,
right? Yes.
they talk to one of their friends who's a housekeeper, who has a friend, and how much money they're making and how easy they can transition to something like this. One thing that I've always really found helpful for me personally is to put it very black and white terms. You have house A
Hmm.
and house B, and it's exactly the same. You look, house A is asking for 600. We're house B, we're 500. Okay. Oftentimes owners are looking at as well are open rates. What we really value is your secured revenue. So highlighting with
Yes.
your homeowners as well that your secured revenue speaks volume to where the market is. And
Hmm.
it tells you that it works because someone booked it. And now, if
Right.
we have this minimum and we're open and no one's booking it, the likeliness for someone to come and book is not going to happen because we already know it happens here. Is one that I, you know,
100%.
one that I had as well. We've got
I
another one
love that
here.
education piece.
How are you managing owners when their hard requirements are working against them, even when presented with data they won't budge? These are great questions, everybody.
They are. I think that answer is very similar to what Allison just said. It's almost like you were reading forward in the chat. Education, I think, is the perfect answer to that. When you have the ability to show them what the market is doing with the tools that you have available to you and say, here's how we can capture forward demand. Here's what the market is doing overall, and here's what, we propose to be, the rates going forward, maybe in your peak season, maybe it's a Taylor Swift that's in town, and really showing the differentiation in what that performance could ultimately look like. If their requirements are working against them, to really show what their requirements would net them and what the recommendation would net them. And if they don't budge, I think that is ultimately that has to be their decision. And I like to say specifically, we could try it your way for 30 months or for 30 days. If it doesn't work how you would like it to, would it be okay if we tried it my way for 30 days? And
Mm-hmm.
give them the option and opportunity to say, yes, I want to do it my way, and we'll see how my occupancy and pacing and ADR and RevPAR are. And if
Yep.
it doesn't meet your goals,
Yep.
give me a chance and
I
see
like,
if I can improve things the next
yeah.
time.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot, Kendra. I see value in that, and I think where it's a little bit different in my next year will be our ninth year. So I think I really always had a soft approach with homeowners.
Mm,
We've had to make adjustments. So as part of that, pricing is in our contract. So we reserve the right for
yeah,
all pricing. So that's helped us in times. I think also you got to rehumanize the experience. You talk about dynamic
yeah.
pricing, you talk about rates in the computers and the softwares, and we got to rehumanize it. And at the end of the
Mm,
day, you've hired us to do a job because you deem us the professional. Now, if you homeowner are a nurse, or if you homeowner are a car mechanic, or if you homeowner are X,
mhm.
I'm not going to go to the hospital and tell you that's the wrong needle. I'm not going to go to the car shop and tell you
Right.
that's the wrong tire. So,
Yeah,
but rehumanizing that experience with them and putting trust back in. Hey, you know what? I hear you. That makes sense.
yeah.
But you've hired us to do this job. And I know that this is the best way for us to do this job for you because this is where the industry standard is. And as part of my
Mm,
commitment to you, this is the common practice across the board. And I know it seems maybe like an outlier because you're maybe down here, but for the thousands and thousands and thousands of other units, this is how they function. And my last
mhm.
singular piece too would be sometimes it's good to be honest.
Yeah.
We're commission based. If you're not making money, we're not making money.
We don't either. Yeah. Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
and and so our primary objective has to be to make you money, and in order to make you money, there are a multitude of things, but most importantly is your pricing tool. So that's why
Hmm.
you have to trust in the data, because the proof is in the pudding. Every owner will feel
Yeah.
like their home is the best home. Every owner will feel like their rate, but you can't base pricing off feelings. You can't base it off
Yes,
feeling. You base it off the number. And so that's, I think,
absolutely.
sometimes a hard one too.
It is.
Just
So
being
why would I
honest.
charge less for a night if I don't have to?
Makes
Right?
sense. It makes sense up here. Makes
It
sense up
does.
here.
It does. But
But
in
down here,
here, yes. It
your
is. I think
bedrooms, your
rehumanizing
bathrooms.
it is such a good way to a good perspective to put that in is that this is someone's home. This is someone's investment. This is someone's, maybe it was their grandmother's home. Maybe it is a family home. It is an heirloom. It is very special to them.
Mm,
And keeping that in
mm,
mind a lot of the time is important to, as you said, give that perspective of ensuring that we can have that conversation in an open and honest and really kind of human way. I like that a lot.
yeah, yeah, reading that experience. Um, we've got one other in here as well. We've got more of a comment. We've got an owner whose minimum pricing is above the 90th percentile. No amount of data and reporting and conversation will realign them with reality. So what do you do at that crossroad?
I mean, I think you can honestly say I'm happy to continue pricing it how you would like to. But having that real honest, I think the honest conversation is exactly what you said, Allison. It's just like, here's the expectation of what that reality will bring you. And here's what I can perform with your property at that level. so that the expectation and the reality match, not so they don't come back in 3 months and go, well, why didn't you make me X amount of dollars last month?
Right.
My
Right.
rates were so high. Well,
Right.
here's
Right,
why.
right. Yep. Paper trails are a good one too, to ensure that these are the things that are being done to positively contribute to them. And then that, I think, really at the end of the day, they're the business decisions that individual managers need to make as what's going to be best and what spends, where do you find your value in your time. And I think again, re-highlighting too, the cost it takes to really list this property between all of the technologies and the onboarding. Being transparent is the best thing you do, and be honest with yourself. And sometimes it does come down to that decision of like, okay, being honest, we're at a roadblock. There's
Yeah.
there's one of two ways. We either do it this way or we don't. And so what's best for you? Because this is my way and this is what I would like to do and this is what I prefer. But they're tough.
Right.
They're tough conversations, and make that decision as a business owner for what suits best for you and the team.
Absolutely. And at the end of the day, the owner's decision to walk forward with you on that path or not is, ultimately a decision that both parties can make. I think that was a
Absolutely.
great way to look at that.
Yeah, yeah, and just really, really relying on your team and on your truth and on your reality and the expectations that are set in front of you, because I think it's easy to really sugarcoat everything and let people know it's
Mhm.
fine and it's good. And sometimes it requires just a little bit more honesty, like, hey, I'm dying here. This is what we're looking at right now.
Yeah.
And so I think that um, trusting in yourself, trusting in the pricing tools, trusting in what you've done as a decision, and knowing that it's your best foot forward. So that way, when you make the right decision, it aligns with the
Yeah. And
brand.
to say specifically, trust that you are the expert, right? As
Yep.
you said,
Yep.
the owner has hired you because you bring that knowledge and that ability to use the tools because you know what the decision should be. And
Hmm.
you should
Hmm.
trust yourself. Absolutely.
Yep. Yep. I mean, this was just lovely. I know I've got a lot of notes for myself as well here today. We have put a link in as well, so please feel free to check out our future webinars that we have, or stop in person at a roadshow too. Um, and I had a great time today. I might as well, maybe I should just leave for the rest of the day and call it good.
I mean, we did a lot. We did a lot today, Allison. I think, we had some great conversations, and I hope that those that weren't able to join us live when you watch this, that you get as much use out of what Allison and I covered. Always feel free to reach out with questions that might not have been covered in in the webinar. And we look forward to the next one. Thank you for having
Absolutely,
me.
absolutely. Oh my gosh, and on behalf of VRNation, thank you for being here. It was just a magnificent time, and anyone is welcome to reach out to me as well. I like to say one team, one dream. Kendra, I'm looking forward to seeing you in the future.
Same, Allison. Thank you so much.